Hey everyone, welcome to the Beyond Extent podcast, a podcast dedicated to a chat between two environment artists discussing everything about the industry we work in. I'm Timothy and I'm joined by William, who is a friend and fellow colleague of mine. This episode will be all about wages, how we perceive this looking into the industry, and other factors that can influence a standard of living. This might be one of the drier topics that we have discussed until this point, but it's an important one nonetheless, so let's dive straight in. Hey William, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello. Welcome
How's it
back
going?
to you.
Welcome back to myself.
Yeah, welcome back to both of us.
Oh,
What?
I love to be with myself.
Okay. Yeah, I love to be with yourself too. What? I'm doing good. And you? How you been doing, man?
Been doing good. I've
Nice.
I've gotten to the habit of sitting on my balcony like late in the evening and just chilling out and doing nothing for like half an hour before I go to sleep. It's been doing
Okay.
wonders, man. Like it's been really helping out for like mental health, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, man, the weather's been nice, huh?
Oh, it's been really good, man. Been enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a little shopping trip today and it's not like super hot yet, but it's like perfectly warm and stuff. It's nice.
Yeah, so there's this thing going around on Twitter. I know that you're probably not that much on Twitter anyway,
No, not
which
really.
which has its positives too. But there was this hashtag going around, gamedevpaidme, and they were basically talking about it's basically people being open and transparent about their salaries and just
Okay.
pay in the game dev industry as a whole. And I think it's an interesting topic to just dive into.
All right. Yeah, it's a big one right off the bat, right?
Yeah, it is. It is
Controversial
really a
topic.
big one.
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about this as well, of course, and there's some things that I do think are like, I don't know, I wouldn't say it that they're like that there's something wrong, but I think that it's a little bit of a strange thing that I really haven't heard from any other industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it could be interesting to dive into that.
Yeah. Like it can definitely be improved, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, let's start at the beginning because I always think back at the time when I was a student and I was like basically psyching myself up for the industry and like getting to work in the industry finally. So I remember going on Glassdoor and all those other places where you could find salaries. I think Glassdoor is the only one that's still around. Or just like talking to
Yeah,
people.
I know that
you
one too, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And I was just like scrolling through the list of environment artist positions, like junior specifically, because I wanted to know what like I could expect from like an entry level position in the industry. But I made one giant wrong calculation, and that I always based salaries in the US.
Oh yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
not, it's, doesn't really work that way, does it?
No. But I was this young naive guy who was like, "Oh, so once I enter the industry, I'm gonna make like 120K or like 150K." I mean, these are overblown numbers by themselves, but I was looking at them, and those are the things you can expect from people in the industry in
Yeah.
America. And I was just like, "Fuck yeah, I'm gonna make so much money." Like I just couldn't imagine ever making that much.
Yeah, but then you look at what the rent is in like San Diego, and then you're like, okay, maybe there is a little bit of a difference there, right?
Yeah. Well, I was stupid enough to not look at that yet. I was just like, "Oh, this is a number that I like, and I'm gonna keep my eyes closed to whatever else is around it." Like at this point, I wasn't thinking about like living by myself or anything. Like I never done that before.
Yeah.
So yeah, reality had to hit me over the head still.
Gotcha.
But did you have any experience like that where you had like a false image or like a false perception of how much you were going to earn?
I mean, at my university, we had one class. I don't know. I don't remember what it was called. But there was one lesson where the teacher was talking about like salaries and stuff, like entry level salaries, and then how it develops when you gain seniority.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember the numbers, but it was like, oh, really? When you're a senior, you get like 5K a month or something. I don't know. It was something like that, you know,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure exactly what the numbers are, but it was a pretty, I would say it was a pretty generous like they rounded up a little bit on the numbers. And yeah, I mean, of course, it gets you. You know, you think like, oh, okay, you can get like a nice apartment from that, and you know, have plenty left over.
Yeah, from
And
5K for sure.
I mean, yeah, that's if you were to be a senior,
Oh,
right? And
okay,
then,
yeah.
but still, like, I don't, like I said, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like a good, pretty high estimate, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Got you excited.
Yeah. Um, but when like my first job that I had was in Spain, right? And obviously the cost of living in Spain is a lot cheaper than it is in Germany. So
Mm-hmm.
the salary was as well. And when I had my interview and I first heard the salary, I was like, oh, that's not as much as I would have hoped for. Um, but then I was looking at rent, and I mean, I lived in a shared apartment, but still, like including everything, like internet and electricity and everything, I think I still paid under 300 euros for rent.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, I always had a good amount of money left at the end of each month. Um, so that wasn't an issue because just the cost of living was so low. So it's always, of course, it's not just a question of how much do you make, but also how much is like your average
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
living cost of living, right? That's the biggest factor, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I was reading the hashtag on Twitter, and there were some people from Spain that were talking about like the wages that they got, and there was like a Google spreadsheet that went around from like anonymous people, and they would average the amount that you got a year, and it amounted to like 14K a year, roughly.
wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, I was
And
I
that's
was
in
just
game
looking at
dev.
that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's only game dev.
Okay.
So
Let's just say I made more than that.
yeah. Yeah, but I was looking at that and I was just like, fuck, that is so low. Like,
That is crazy.
yeah, especially like I can kind of see it if you're in like a rural area, but most of these jobs are like centered around like community
Bigger
places,
cities.
like the
Or,
big
yeah.
cities like Madrid and whatever. So it's kind of crazy to me seeing that average and then knowing that the rent in those big cities isn't like 300 like you said anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's the yeah. I think so. The thing is, like I said, it really depends on the situation. Like also, like you said, if you get an apartment that's not in the inner city, you probably spend a lot less still,
Hmm.
right? So there's always going to be ways of keeping your cost of living lower, but
Hmm.
then you might have to sacrifice like a lot of just quality of life, right? You have to drive an hour each day to get to work or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think compared to a lot of other industries, there is this weird notion. This is what I kind of was talking about earlier, that you can be like you should be grateful that you have a job in that industry, so
Mm.
you're not going to get paid as much. I always had that feeling, you know, that it's like, well, you're not making as much as you could potentially working in something like commercials, you know, like doing 3D for, I don't know, some commercial or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Um,
even like becoming an engineer outside of the game dev
yeah,
spectrum or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, exactly. Like doing some CAD stuff for automobile company or whatever, right?
Hmm.
I have
Hmm.
a friend who does that, and he makes a lot more money than he makes more money than me. Let's just say,
Yeah.
and not a lot, but he does, and then there's this feeling of, well, but you work in games, you know. So that
Yeah.
but and somehow that that like makes it okay that you earn less money. I mean, a lot of companies have a lot more benefits than I would say like an engineer job might. You know, like you have like free stuff that you can get in the studio, you
Mm,
get bonuses and all that stuff. So it might level out a bit more.
yeah.
But I think, especially in entry level jobs, a lot of the time it can be like people. I don't really want to say they're being taken advantage of, but it almost borders on that. I would say sometimes because it has this feeling of, yeah, you should be grateful that you even have a job because there's like 10 other people that or 100 other people that could have done this job too, but
Hmm.
we chose you, and that's why maybe you're not getting as much money or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that in alone, if like I said, if the benefits and all that stuff are good enough, I think that's still fair. But
Hmm.
then some studios, I mean, we talked about this before, and we don't have that experience currently. But some studios then still have like this crunch time, this overtime culture that a lot of the time isn't paid. So then you're not just working for less money than you could make in another industry, but you also have to work more. And I think that's when it starts to have this really bitter taste, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the good starts to, well, the bad starts to outweigh the good, basically.
Yeah, because then it really does feel like people are taken advantage of because then it feels like, well, you want to work on this cool game and you want to finish this cool game the best way that you can. So, maybe you're going to stay in the office an hour or two longer
Yeah. Like
just
everyone
because
else is
you
doing it,
like
right?
it so much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and everyone else is doing it. I mean, I don't want to say that I have any personal experience there or that I know anything about it, but that's what I heard was going on sometimes at
Yeah.
studios like
Yeah.
Naughty Dog, right?
Yeah. It's the same for me. Like it's all hearsay, right?
Yeah, of course. But that's what I've been hearing is that
Hmm.
of course the people, they're so passionate about their jobs that then it it becomes, well, I mean, of course it's still their own decision if they want to stay longer or not, but it does feel like there might be some peer pressure involved, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like this, like you said, you don't want to be the first guy to leave
Yeah.
or
It's
something like
also
that.
a deliberate choice for like your future development as well.
Yeah.
Because like if you apply for Naughty Dog and you get that job and the salary might be underwhelming. I'm not saying that it is because I have no clue what the salary is at
Yeah,
Naughty
me
Dog,
neither.
but just throwing it out there that they in the case that they offer you less, then you can still see it in a way where it's like, look, but I'll work for Naughty Dog. Like if I want to
Yeah,
apply to another studio after this, like that is going to be like a really strong point on my portfolio. Or if you want to go freelance after a while, like you have this really strong portfolio from like really good titles that Naughty Dog makes. Like it's one of the top studios that's out there when it comes
yeah.
to work. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's,
it's
I think that can be a little dangerous, for people to kind of get thrown down that rabbit hole and then thinking,
mhm.
maybe it is worth not not taking more money, even though I might, like deserve more money or whatever it is,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I will take this job just because it's such a big name, either for my portfolio or just for myself, just for being proud of, hey, I work at Naughty Dog, I want to work on The Last
Hmm.
of Us or whatever it is, right? So that's the thing. I feel like that definitely is something that's being abused a little bit.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
they can
sometimes it
easily
might
use
not
it
be.
against you.
Yeah, and it might not even be deliberate, right? It might not be
Hmm.
that that's what the people are thinking, like, oh, we're not going to pay them as much because we're Naughty Dog or whatever. I don't want to keep saying the name Naughty Dog. I don't have anything
Yeah,
against them.
yeah.
I don't know
Maybe
anything
maybe
about
we
it.
should move away from
Yeah,
Naughty Dog, but like
yeah,
just
they're
just
great games.
a
Great games.
prestigious company, like a company that
Yeah,
that everyone in the game dev community looks up to.
yeah. Um, but it still might have an impact anyway, even if it's not a deliberate choice, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Or it might turn into a situation where, say, you apply to this company, and then you like hesitate because you're like, oh, maybe we should negotiate about pay or whatever, or like benefits. It can be anything. But
Yeah.
then the person next in line is like, no, I'll take it. No questions asked. Then they might be like, look, we need someone now. Like, we
Yeah.
don't really have the time to wait on this guy. Let's just go for the other one.
Yeah, exactly. And
Like,
that's
there's obviously more involved. Like, it's the portfolio, like how good your work team fit, and blah blah blah. But like, if we cut it down to the core, it might turn into a situation like that.
no. And it's yeah, and that's the thing that I was originally saying was that I've never heard this from any other industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard someone saying, "Oh, yeah, well, I got this job, but this company is really cool, so I'm going to work for them because
Yeah.
they're so cool."
Yeah.
And they
Well,
even
it's
if
also
they're not
like
meant to.
a factory worker doesn't really say that, right? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to. Well, at least I haven't heard it. Let's put it that way. Because
Yeah.
a lot of my friends are looking for new jobs, but it's not like, oh, they make this product. Like, I want to work there. Like, it's not a situation like that. But yeah, to come back, to the point where it's easy to make, well, to get taken advantage of when you have this big passion for games, and some studios might use that against you.
Yeah.
So that's something to be careful of. Also,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no, just I talked about it before where I did this little side job in my university days, right? Which I'm really grateful for that I had that opportunity and I learned a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't really paid that much, which is fine because I was just starting out. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, I still was like 1/3 of an art team working on one game, and I didn't really get a lot of money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, it was in this case it was fine for me because I wanted to work anyway, and this way I could get paid a little bit. But still, this way of like saying, oh yeah, we're just gonna get some student to do it is a weird way
Yeah.
of working
Yeah.
too, right? And a friend of mine who used to work in one studio, I'm not gonna name that studio, said that studio is pretty much it pretty much consists of interns, that
Yeah.
are not getting paid as much. It's like, I don't know, 80% interns, and then the rest are seniors that tell the interns what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they keep the wages low, which is pretty absurd to me.
Yeah, we had an example like that. Just the same thing. Like we had these internship days at our school, and we had this one studio. Not gonna name the name, but they would come in and they would basically be looking for a ton of cheap labor, technically, because
Yeah.
you got to work on like a big name. Like, you got to work on like a big game, so people would be like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it." And we had this rumor going around that this studio wasn't paying them because it's
Oh, wow.
not mandatory in Belgium to pay for your internship. So yeah, that was kind of iffy. So it's technically, yeah, there was something more involved than just the company's fault. Like, if the law, or like the government allows for it, then kind of feels dicey.
Yeah.
But I still don't agree. Like, it's like you said, like you were still 1/3 of an art team, and you were still churning out work. Maybe you had to have more training. Yeah, but everyone goes through that.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? It's again, it's this feeling of like you should be thankful to have a job at all.
Yeah. Even
And then
even though you worked for like multiple years to get all the skills required to work that job,
Yeah.
which is always a thing that I think back to. Like, I have a bachelor. Like, this is what I studied. This is
Yeah.
what I went to school for 4 years. Like, it's yeah, I studied this for like 4 years. Like, I went through the entire course. So it kind of feels, yeah. And you have that even if you don't go to school, right? Like, if you churn if you just churn your portfolio out and you just do it on your own, like, you're still well, crunching on your own work. You're still developing your own character, your own skills. Like, you still have so much to offer, and
Mm.
it's sometimes it's kind of weird to see studios taking advantage of that because they know that there's so much competition in the field that there are a lot of people looking for a job because
No.
yeah, working in games, it's great. Like it's still a dream job. Like a lot of people want it.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? There's always going to be someone who does the job just so they can have any job. So that can drive down the wages even more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's actually another point that I wrote down too. It's like the amount of people getting into the industry. We have a lot of people, like a lot of students that are going through schools and going through the entire thing that they need to do to get into the industry. So like
Yeah.
year on, it's getting the bar is getting higher and higher because there's more people trying to get in, and also the work that they deliver now coming out of school compared to the work that I delivered, like it's uncomparable.
The
Like
quality is a lot higher.
yeah, exactly. It's it's really inspiring to see like
Yes,
students
definitely.
just crunching out their own work and like developing their own style. It's so cool to see, man.
That is nice.
So it's always a little bit demotivating when companies try to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you brought up another good point though. Like in the beginning, you talked about the cost of living as well.
Mm.
Because a lot of people only look at this income, right? Like the money that you get in. But it's
Yeah.
also the money that you spend has a lot of influence on this.
Yeah, that's, I would say, the second biggest part of it, right?
Yeah, and that's also exactly why, well, it was one of the reasons why I moved to Berlin. Because it literally cut my rent from coming from Cambridge, where I was before, in half. So technically, like if we do a comparison, I wasn't going to earn more than I was doing in Cambridge,
Mm.
but the rent was going to cost me half, so I could save up like a lot more
Of
than I could
course.
ever do
Yeah.
in Cambridge. And
That's
maybe,
that's the thing, yeah.
yeah, maybe in the long run, it might not have been a good idea. Like I've maybe should have pushed a little bit harder for a higher wage, because then you have to see it that you're building your own, how would I say, like position basically.
Mm.
So the higher that you build yourself up, like the more chips, the more bargaining chips you have for the next job.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah, it's something that
I
I've been
mean,
thinking about because yeah, we 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 tend to focus on the income a lot, right? So
yeah,
I
that's so for me it was actually the other way around kind of because I knew that moving back to Berlin was going to be a lot more expensive than living in Spain.
oh, that's right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but then I looked at how much like what the difference would be in the salary, and I was like, yeah, it's, in the end, I'm actually gonna have more or less the same money left over at the end of the month. Um, but I will have a job that is more interesting to me personally, and I mean a big factor was of course that I would be able to move back to my hometown, have my friends and family here, stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's of course there's always a lot of personal stuff that you have to think about as well, right? It's not just this is how much I'm going to spend living here, this is how much I'm going to earn living there or working there. So
Yep.
you have to think about all the other factors as well, like where do you actually want to live, right? It's not all just about the money.
Yeah, that's a really good point because I still don't know the answer to that question. Like I'm still looking for that answer. But
Where
it's
you want to live.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other part of that is you're absolutely right. Like there are so many factors that play into that. Where a factor from us was also that we had the whole Brexit thing going on.
Mm.
And we were like, look, do we want to play it safe? Do we want to keep living here, living in high wages, in high rents, not wages, or just be like, look, let's move to mainland Europe and just settle in there and have more opportunities, because at that time we didn't really know what Brexit was going to be, right? Like,
Yeah.
we didn't know what kind of mess it would become. Kind of had an idea, but yeah, we just wanted to play it safe and be like, look, if the worst thing happens, then we can still look for another job in another European country. We're not
Yeah.
like locked in the UK, basically.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? You always have a lot of different factors that can influence your decision on where you actually do want to take a job. If you do even have that that choice, right? A lot of people don't have that choice, and they just kind of have to take what they can get.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say from like a personal perspective, from people that still live in the UK and didn't move out, like it hasn't really changed that much when we're purely talking about like the economics, right?
Yeah.
Like they're still earning a good wage, they're still paying the same rent, like nothing like that has impacted whatsoever. So yeah, it's kind of a personal thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting thinking about like all the different factors that play in to yeah, moving jobs basically. Because I spend a lot of time scouting, um, what's it called, like a cost of living index comparison site. I'll
Yes. Yeah.
I'll leave the link in the show notes. But that's a really good one because you can kind of see comparatively to the city where you live in now, how much you're gonna spend on rent, how expensive the food is, how much the well, a flat is within the city center or outside of the city center. It's not 100% accurate, but it gives you like a
Of
really
course.
good indication of how expensive a city can be. And that's
Yeah.
that's
It's. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's fine. Um, yeah, I was just gonna ask you if you ever used something like that, or what was your biggest impact when you moved?
I mean, when I thought about moving for the first time, that was definitely a big point, right? I think it's one of the most important things to just make sure that you'll be able to maybe save up some money, or at least have a good living. If you're gonna take that big step and move. So when I had actually never been to Spain at all before I moved, right? So I had to check a lot of things. Like I was just looking at, okay, what's like you said, like the whole economic situation. How is the prices of stuff going to be? I think I even looked at like crime rates and stuff. Just
I did
because
the
I did not
same.
know anything. Yeah, I did not know anything about the place that I was moving. So I just tried to soak up as much information as I could to like make that threshold of diving into something new a little bit less daunting, I would say. So yeah, I think it's really important to do your research if you're gonna take a big step like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it is a big step, right? Like you're
Yeah.
basically uprooting your entire life and move to another city.
No.
But I wanna take it back to focusing more on the money and the pay again. Because I feel like we're floating a little bit away from topics that we already discussed in like previous episodes of the podcast anyway.
Yeah.
So we obviously have this really big discussion topic of QA being underpaid, which is, I think, we're not in a position to discuss it because we were never QA. Like I've never
Yeah.
gone through a QA track, but
Me neither.
I've talked to other people that are QA or were QA before, and I can tell you that QA tend to be the most underappreciated people in the industry,
Yeah.
but for no good reason whatsoever. Like there are
Yeah.
moments when, well, there are a lot of moments when you really need dedicated QA. and they can help solve a lot of stuff.
Of
And
course, who else is gonna look at all that stuff,
yeah, exactly.
right?
Like, and them being like underpaid in as a industry average, right? Like I'm just looking at the industry average.
Hmm.
I think that that QA is still really underpaid at the moment. I sometimes have the feeling that every discipline has this feeling that they're being underpaid, especially if you compare to the income of what companies have.
Hmm.
Like it's sometimes it gets really ridiculous, and then you hear obviously the crazy stories about certain CEOs from certain companies driving two Ferraris and then QAs barely surviving or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, those
that
stories.
is
Oh man.
something that can really make you mad, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
think about. Yeah, there's some companies that you hear stories like that, and you're just like, man, I know this guy who works there, and he's really not doing that well. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the thing again, right? But he's working in the games industry, so he's got a great job. And I mean, that's another thing, right? We in Europe can be super happy with our job security, but as we've seen, like a year ago, when all these people, like these waves of people being let go in different companies, right? That's another thing that's super scary. That
Mm.
especially in the US, people can just
Yeah.
lose their jobs from one day to another, which is just such a crazy concept to a European mind, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Like, what was it? Like letting go of like 800 people.
Yup.
Well, yeah. You have the example of Blizzard, right? Like
Yeah.
I only know like the big headlines of it because like you said, I tend to get a little bit mad when I see those things, so I try to stay away from that stuff.
Hmm.
But they let go like a lot of their marketing team, I think.
Mm.
And then like a couple of months later, they had like openings for the people that they had fired like a couple of months before
Okay.
because um well, from the outside looking in, it's just trying to push down the wages again, right? Like if you hire newly
Mm.
graduates, like you can push the wages down.
Yeah.
Like there's some stuff like that happens when it's just like, oh, yeah. I don't know how to feel
It's
about that.
yeah. That doesn't sound like that doesn't sound too good. Let's
But
just
it's
keep it
it's
at
mostly
that.
the US, right? Like obviously you
Yeah, I
have
haven't heard that story, that kind of story from Europe at all.
yeah, you have I'm pretty sure that you can dig up some articles or like companies that went through the same shit in Europe. But yeah, we mostly hear it from the US.
Mm.
Like let's I'm trying to think about this. Like I'm trying to think about an example of where I negotiated for like a higher wage. Um, and the only examples that I want to give are not from my previous or not from my current company, of course. Like we want to try and stay away from our current employer.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep it more generalistic. Where most of the times when I negotiated for a higher wage, it was in one-on-ones or like personal reviews or whatever
Yeah.
the company calls them, where it's like, look, I'm doing this and this according to the guidelines from this company. This is above my junior title or whatever,
Yeah.
so I deserve more than this. So it's it might feel really awkward in the beginning, but sometimes you just
Yeah.
have to prepare it like you would prepare, I don't know, like a presentation or whatever. Just go through all the steps and really think about concrete examples of why you need to be paid more or why you
Yeah.
deserve that higher job title. And be prepared to defend it as well. Like if they push back, try and have an answer ready or at least explain where you're coming from.
Yes. I think it is really important to be able to stand up for yourself in that way, right?
It is a tricky one though, because I tend to be, yeah, I'm really big into just avoiding conflict. So this already like bringing this up feels like a conflict to me because I'm just like, oh no, what if they say this? What if they say that?
Yeah.
And you're basically playing mind games with yourself because in the end you're asking a perfectly normal thing, and
Yeah.
even if they say no, you can sort of get your conclusions of what your next steps should be.
Exactly. Then you just ask, well, if I'm not ready now, what will I have to do to be ready? And then it becomes another thing.
Exactly. But at least you're not dealing with a stalemate of you just thinking that you deserve more, but never speaking up about it.
Yeah.
And then even if the worst thing happens and they say no, and they don't really give you a good reason why or when you should get a promotion or like a pay raise or whatever, then it might be time to look for another opportunity.
Yeah.
But at least
That's right.
at least that gives you like clarity of mind because you know that you fought for it. And
Yeah, you're not in limbo anymore. You're not in this weird state of like, do I
yeah.
deserve more? Will I get more? Is there? Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a little
exactly.
bit of that before when I felt like I was ready to like move on in some way, and I was even told by my superior that I was, but then it just never happened. And that can be a really weird state because you don't want to like keep going back and being like, hey, when it's going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Right? Like a kid in the back of the family van asking when are we there yet? Right? You don't want to just keep pestering them about it, but you don't want to just like you want to stand up for yourself. You don't want to just give up on yourself and be like, oh well, it's gonna happen when it's gonna happen. Maybe that's never. Maybe they forget about me. It's a weird. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that moment when you were told that you were gonna get like a message after a job interview, but you just never get it, or you know what I mean? It's that same kind of stage where you're just not sure what the stage of everything is, and but you don't want to keep asking about it.
Yeah,
I can't hear you
exactly.
anymore. Oh, okay.
Oh,
There you
sorry. Yeah, cut out for a little bit. But yeah, exactly that. Like, there is also like a third avenue to this, where I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about it. But I've been a really big proponent of this, where it's like, say you have clear guidelines from the company, and that you're gonna earn more in, I don't know, 2 years or whatever. I'm just naming something,
Yeah.
and you're really happy at that company, but you need extra money.
Yeah.
Like, then that's kind of the situation that I was in when I was working in the UK, where I just started doing personal work and trying to monetize it in some way.
Yeah.
Where I was trying like smaller things, like making materials, like throwing them up for like a couple of bucks, and then seeing if people would buy it. Like that, just doing that. Those smaller things, they eventually led up to become bigger things, and
Of
it
course.
basically was this snowball effect where now we have like our own platform, and we have this podcast, and we have a community, and that basically all came from that one moment where I decided like, oh, what if I try to monetize my own stuff?
Yeah. That's I think that definitely is a great position to be in, because a lot of other jobs can't really do that. That's a plus of this industry, is that there is this great way of kind of monetizing the stuff you do in your free time.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it shouldn't be necessary, right?
Yeah, that's
It
true.
shouldn't be necessary to spend your free time on more work, because otherwise you can't pay your bills or whatever. I mean, I've really never had that big of a problem because I was just living on my own. I just had to take care of myself.
Hmm.
But let's say you have a family, or a lot of people that I know just have like student loans, that they have to
Oh,
pay
yeah.
up. So that's another couple $100 each month that they have to get from somewhere. That means they won't be able to get anything for themselves, or maybe even they don't have enough to pay their rent.
Hmm.
So, and then you might have to, let's say, yeah, do some freelance work on the side, if you're even allowed to do that, right? That's another thing. Sometimes you're not even allowed to do
Yeah,
it by the company you work
that's
for.
a good topic as well. Because some
Yeah,
some companies, like you said, they don't allow for that kind of stuff. Like they wanna keep you fresh for their work, basically.
yeah,
So it's also really important that you discuss this with your employer if you're currently employed at a company, that you can even do this
yes,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like it shouldn't be necessary, but
At
on the
least
other
there is
side
that
of,
option.
sorry?
At least there is the option.
Yeah,
Some
exactly.
people don't have that at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like I also feel like if I wasn't kind of pushed into it, like I wouldn't be in this position now, if you know what I mean. Like in the beginning,
Hmm.
it felt forced because I was like, okay, like we can barely save up anything from our combined wage. So if we want to move in the future, I'll have to look for an additional revenue stream coming in. Like even if it's a little bit every month, like you can at least save that up for like the eventual move that you want to do.
Yeah,
Because that was my main focus back then. But then that slowly became more about our entire future. Where it's like you said, like you're gonna have a family. Oh, maybe you want to have a house at some point. Like,
mm.
how are you gonna do that? And that's so it slowly became it slowly moved from being forced to being something that I love to do.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thing. It can lead to cool things like this,
Hmm.
which is a lot of fun, and it's a great way to connect with people.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
on the other hand,
It's
too.
it's
Yeah,
kind of surprising what kind of stuff that you encounter along the way and how it turns into something else that you might not expect down the line.
yeah. Speaking of connecting with people, ha 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 ha.
Oh shit.
Do we want to move on to a question? Because I feel, even though I think this has been a super interesting and important topic to talk about, I feel like it's definitely been a lot more solemn than the other episodes. You know what I mean? It's been very serious.
Oh yeah.
So maybe we want to pick out a little question that maybe lifts up our spirits before we move
Oh
into the
yeah,
weekend.
sure. All right. This is going to be an interesting one for me because I'm going to pronounce a name that I'm probably going to butcher.
Okay.
So, we got what would you've been doing if it were not for environment or 3D art? And this is a question asked by Sasho Laseki. So, yeah, if I
Lazeshki? Sasha
Lazis
Laze?
Laseki, well,
Lazesh?
if I butchered it, I'm going to hear about it in the community Discord channel anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, but
That's a
like
great question. I love this question. This is
yeah, I
cool.
like it too. It's such a good one. You go ahead, man.
So I actually remember what I was when I was just finishing up high school. I was thinking about what I want to do, and I was thinking of doing this whole games thing. It's been really fun, whatever. Um, and I was also thinking about what if I do want to do something more traditional with my life, let's say. Um,
Traditional.
and yeah, and I was actually thinking of becoming a teacher for a hot second there.
Wait,
I was like,
teacher.
huh, yeah, a teacher. I was
Okay.
because I also do love doing this, and this is why I've actually been teaching classes for 3D art at my old university, right? So
Yeah.
I do love doing that, and I now kind of have that opportunity uh, as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about becoming maybe like an English teacher for like high school students and stuff. Um,
Okay.
but then I remembered that I hated high school students. No, it was just I don't know. Also, my mother actually she told me like, why, You know, like you have this thing that you're good at, you want to do it. Why don't you just go for it? Which was a good push as well, right?
Oh, so you were already doing 3D by that point.
Yeah, just on the side a little bit though. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't really serious about it, but yeah, but then I thought, okay, sure, why not give this a try? And like I said, I did this little tryout course, and I realized, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And before, I actually also thought about becoming a chef, like a cook.
Oh shit.
But I'm actually pretty happy that I didn't go that route, because I have a friend who's in he's not in culinary school, but he's becoming a cook at like a big restaurant, like a really high, like fancy pants restaurant, where he's doing like, you know, all the foam stuff and all that.
Oh, all the foam
You know
stuff.
you know what I mean, where it's like the little tiny piece of salmon with like the
Yeah,
green
yeah.
pea foam on the side or whatever. And man, he's working crazy hours, dude.
Well, that's the thing. Like we talk about stress at work sometimes,
Yeah.
like or like the industry in general. But man, I look at chefs and like the situations in kitchens.
Yeah.
Fuck no.
That is, dude, that is another industry that I really feel like there's some stuff going wrong there. Like
Yeah.
just hearing about, like, even in his like student life, or like he's not a full chef yet, but he's becoming one. He said he had like 3 days in a row where he worked like overall for like 50 hours in 3 days,
Jeez.
which is just like crazy to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
What made you try to do that, or like why did that cross your mind?
Oh, I just like cooking. But I think it's the same. It's the same when you say, I don't know, I like playing video games. I'm gonna become like a professional esports guy. You know?
I thought you were gonna go the route of like, oh, I like playing games, so I'm gonna do game art.
No. It's more like, you know, it's this thing of, I like doing this sometimes, so I might like to do it as a job. That's a whole totally different thing, right? Because you're not cooking for yourself, you're cooking for different people. You're cooking the same thing over and over again, and you're doing it for 12 hours a day. So yeah, it wasn't really, at that time, it wasn't really a thing that I was, you know, pursuing in any way. It was just in the back of my mind, like, this could be something, I guess.
You were just trying to figure out like what you really like to do, and then maybe turning that into what you're gonna do in the future.
Yeah, but I think from pretty early on, the thing that I was most like serious about actually pursuing would have been this kind of 3D career. Yeah. What about you, man?
That's so interesting, man. Like working in the kitchen, because I actually worked in a kitchen for a while. I was
Oh, really?
I was doing the dishes every weekend
Damn.
in a Chinese restaurant in Belgium, and I was always really impressed with just the speed of everything. Like how many plates you have to wash, you know, like how many plates they have to serve, or. But yeah, it gave me this really good insight into that kind of industry. I also worked in like Pizza Hut for my first student job and whatever. So, but I think doing those jobs made me realize that I didn't really want to go into those jobs. So I kind of knew that. Like I enjoyed the camaraderie that we had in the kitchen, because maybe I mentioned this before, but we used to go. It was two people doing the dishes, and we would like do different shifts, right? But then sometimes we would all come together. We would go to our boss's house and just play games until like 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So that was
That's
pretty
cool.
unique. But yeah, what would I have been doing if not for environment art? Like, I was, until my 4th year in high school, I was studying to become like an electrician or mechanic. Like I always had an interest in cars. So at that time, I was thinking about becoming a car mechanic,
Huh.
which a lot of my people, like a lot of my friends, they kind of took that route. And then like some of them work on like big tractors. Some of them went to Dubai to start start working on like cranes and heavy construction and all that stuff. So like most of my friends actually went into that industry. Where in my fourth year studying that, I was like, I draw a lot of the time, so maybe I should go into that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's also this other side of things that makes me think back at all the jobs that I had in chemical companies as well. Like I would work summer jobs in chemical companies because my dad worked there,
Ah.
and they were always pretty fun actually. Like the first year I was working in how would you call it, like a storage section where all the sections of the company would get their stuff for like repairs and whatever. It's like a warehouse basically.
Yeah.
And then
Gotcha.
the second year I would be operating cranes and like filling up boats, and this was in shifts, so I would work through the entire night sometimes, and that was pretty fun too. Like normally you couldn't go on like the big cranes because I was like 18 then, and you had to have proper licenses and all that stuff, because like
Yeah.
the cranes that I operated, they were like, I don't know, they were like massive. You had to climb up like 20 meters or whatever, where you had like the cabin.
Jesus, man.
You couldn't really use those as a student, but I was just like, just let me on the big guys, and they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Oh my God. Dude, I could have never done that.
But it was also fun. It was super chill in the night because the work itself is super boring, because the only thing you have to do is it's a pipeline, right? Or like it's a conveyor belt going onto the boat.
Oh, so you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, you're not doing anything. It's just like as soon as something goes wrong or you have to stop the conveyor belt, you just pick your walkie-talkie, say like, "Oh, stop the conveyor belt." That's it. And that's it. Like 8 hours.
Man.
So I don't know. Like I kind of feel like I love different aspects of each job, and I figured out really quickly that most of the time it's the people that make the job fun.
Yeah,
So
that's a big factor. But
yeah,
also, what I
I don't
like
know.
about 3D and game art is that you do have aspects of a lot of different jobs in your job, right? You not only have that creative side, but you also have this technical side in it. So even
Yeah.
though you're not working on like an actual thing that's going to be used in the real world, you're still working on maybe, I don't know, cool hard surface sci-fi machine, which is kind of like, you kind of doing like an engineer's job. Of course, I don't want to I don't want to disrespect engineers.
Yeah,
We're
because
not
it's
doing
that
that
simple.
much. Yeah, but we're just we're thinking about how stuff works, and how stuff, like, I don't know, is built a lot of the time, at least if you're working on like a prop.
It kind of is though.
Um,
Like a lot of
yeah,
people underestimate how much research you need to do to
yeah,
get like an intimate understanding of how stuff works.
that's true.
So yeah. But yeah, to come back to the question, like what would I have been doing if not for environment art? I'm not sure actually. Maybe working in a factory somewhere. Take like a really chill job and maybe do 3D on the side. I don't know.
Yeah,
Could be interesting too.
yeah, man. I bet some school somewhere right now. It's crazy. Yeah, it's especially for me because this has all been like, only like the last 4 years. Like that's when I finished high school, right? It was like 4 years ago, pretty much exactly 4 years ago,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is crazy to think that my life has changed so much
It's stupid,
in these
right?
years.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes I forget that I've been in this industry for like 5 to 6 years now. And then I kind of look back at the timeline and I'm like, I thought this was like 12 years. Jeez.
But yeah, man, I don't know. I guess we can be happy that we found 3D because obviously we would be lost without it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point, because if I struggle to think about like a good replacement job, I think we found our calling.
Yeah, and I don't know how happy I would have been as a teacher or a cook. So I think I made the right choice.
Yeah. I would love to come over for dinner though. Yeah, this was a really really fun one. It's
I love this question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly
Thanks,
like you said. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say thanks to
Oh, Sasho
can't find the name.
Lazeski.
Yes, Sasha Lazeski. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good pronunciation.
Let's hope so.
He's gonna hate us.
He or she
Yeah.
can say if it was correct.
Exactly. All right. So with that, we're gonna end this episode of the podcast. This was it was a tough one, so it was good to have this this nice question at the back of it.
Yes.
All right. We'll catch you in the next one, people.
All right. Thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you did, then you can check out the playlist on the right for more episodes, and don't forget to like, subscribe, or share it with friends. If you're an environment artist trying to break into the industry, or just looking to grow your skills, you can find a ton more resources like weekly tips, blog posts, and more on beyondextend.com. But that's going to do it from our side. Thanks so much for joining us, and a shout out to all of our Patreon supporters who made this possible.